Hello, my name is Carissa Bowers.
My name is Haley Johnson.
And my name is Sydney Hausman.
And we're just a couple of AP government students trying to figure out what the heck town council meetings are all about and if they're even worth attending. Or maybe they're not. We don't know. But in this podcast, we're going to attempt to figure it out. In order to do this, we recently attended a town council meeting in our hometown of Oro Valley, Arizona, and we interviewed the current mayor serving in our town, Mr. Joseph Winfield.
So the form of government that the town of Oro Valley employs is a council manager form of government. And in this form of government, it combines the strong political leadership of elected officials along with the strong managerial experience of an appointed professional local government manager. So in this kind of form of government, you have the manager who's appointed and you have the elected officials.
Haley, how is this different from the national form of government?
So that's a great question. So this is still a republic with elected officials who represent the people, just like the national form of government. But it varies because in this there's also the appointed official, so the manager. And this is kind of like the bureaucracy who are appointed and put in place by the president.
So is like the only appointed person the like town manager, and then like the elected is like the mayor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, so the mission statement of Oro Valley is that they are committed to providing high-quality municipal services and responsible development. Through the town manager, the mayor and council provide policy direction by adopting rules, regulations, and procedures to meet the community needs. These include rules like budgeting and different budgeting and different responsibilities that include budgeting and
So, according to the mayor when we talked to him, there are 4 purposes to town government, and they are public safety, infrastructure, land use and zoning, and parks and recreation. So that's like mainly what local government would cover. But that's like really different when you like compare local government to national government. Like, like that's not what you think of.
Right, well, with national, they have a lot more foreign policies and stuff like that, and with local, it's a lot more directed towards a single community. So I feel like it's a lot more specific than general with national.
Yeah. And with the local government, for Arizona at least, there's these state laws that you have to have open meetings with the council, so they can't meet separately on their own and without the public, so it has to be a public meeting in order for them to get together and make decisions. So it's really hard for them.
Yeah, I feel like that would be super hard for them to get stuff done with the public always having to be there.
Because don't they only meet like as an entire council like every 2-ish weeks?
Yeah, when they have their official meetings, and so it's really hard, but it's good for transparency. Everybody always knows what they're discussing and what's going on.
But I guess that's something to consider, like how like worth it is transparency in the long run, like if they can't be as like efficient and effective.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like there needs to be a balance.
Also, when we were talking to the mayor, he mentioned that part of their meetings are specifically for decision making, and then some are just kind of between decisions that. So he talked about they often have to come into the meetings with a previously made decision, because it's silly to come into a meeting that you have to make a decision without already kind of knowing what you're going to make. Which, I mean, you talked about it's difficult when there's like public there trying to speak. How would you?
He mentioned how they have these packets of information that they're given before, and so you have to read these packets of information so you're prepared, understand the topic and what's going to be discussed. And so you have to kind of come in with a previous idea of what you think and what you believe, and then it can be influenced and changed by presentations or by your staff. Their staff sometimes influences them, informing them whether the statistics that the people are using, the interest group is using, are correct, and whether or not they should or should not vote for something. So it's really interesting to look at how the open meeting works and who influences what. But they do come in with a preconceived idea. So do they,
have to make a decision at certain meetings? Is it like, oh, we're ruling on this issue today, and we have to make the decision today?
No, I think it's more like they come in hoping to make the decision, but if someone says something that sways their opinion or changes their decision, they might kind of come back to a future meeting to actually make it.
They can put off decision making and say, we need more time, we need to postpone this, and then they can make the decision later.
Okay, so, like, residents do have a voice. Because, like, if you say
Yes.
they come in with, like, pre-made decisions, it kind of seems like there's no point to, like, residents showing up and talking because it's like, well, they've already made their decisions.
Yeah, it does seem like that at first, and so it's really important to look deeper into it and see, are these open meetings really the best form? And also, are they taking into consideration what the people have to say? And it seems like, yes, they are, because they do have the opportunity to... They don't make decisions that day all the time.
So who's, like, the biggest influence? Like, you mentioned the staff, but is it, like, the staff's the biggest influence, or, like, the mayor, like, their personal opinion or their background, or, like...
So I think it depends on each person and the different elected officials. So the mayor just mentioned that three different things in particular influence him. So his staff informing him of what to vote for, his own bias and what he thinks about different situations, and then what the people think, because he wants the people to be taken into account during decisions. So for example, he mentioned there was this zoning issue, and there was also this issue with land and the residents wanting certain things to be done in order for this building to be built, and the people who were building it didn't take into consideration certain things, and so he said no on the building plans because they weren't taking into account what the people had to say, what the citizens of Oro Valley had to say. And so I think that's really important that he does take into account what the people think.
Also, he mentioned in that situation, he gave them kind of things that they could fix and do better on, so they came back at a later meeting having changed some of their ideas and then presented it to him again, and then he'll make a new decision based off what they took into account.
Yeah, it's a collaboration working together.
Especially because, like, they have to match, because, like, the town council has, like, a general plan and then a strategic plan, and they kind of, like, have to align with them, kind of.
Yeah, everything has to work. And so the main purpose of these council meetings, just to sum everything up, is it's a way for citizens to speak and to hear the decisions of the council as they adhere to state law. So they can have their voices heard, as well as hear what the council is making, what decision the council is making.
Because, like, he used another example when he was talking about the zoning case at Innovation Parkway. When, like, from an owner perspective, they had 15 acres of land that they wanted to rezone from commercial to housing use, but they had to say no, as the staff recommended, because Oro Valley has less than 200 acres of commercial zoning left. So it's, like, sometimes, I guess, like, they have a bigger picture of, like, the whole town instead of just, like, a personal, you know, kind of
Yeah, they
view.
have to take into account the whole town.
So we've talked about, like, the purpose kind of behind, like, local government and some of the stuff that they do, but, like, specifically the meetings. Like, what is the point of the meetings and the attendance?
So, it's a public meeting of the council where civilians are encouraged to come, and they're welcome to come, and they can give their opinions through presentations or blue cards, and they can present their ideas to the council. So this influences the council and the elected officials in the council to make decisions based on what they're going to do.
So, like, are the meetings really formal? Do they follow, like, a schedule, like, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so they pretty much always begin with an attendance, and then the Pledge of Allegiance, and then some announcements. And then there are, like previously mentioned, blue cards, which you can find in the agenda that is posted before the actual meeting takes place. So in the meeting that we went to, I think there was an area for zoning issues, which we kind of already talked about, and then also Naranja Park Archery, which I think is when they talked mostly about the budgeting for the archery park and wanting
some
supplies.
more money, to keep it up.
So then after the blue cards, they move into presentations, which are also pre-scheduled times where different interest groups come and speak about different issues that they're talking about. So in our meeting, Golden Ranch Fire Department came and pretty much just informed the council about some services they offer and what they exist to do.
Yeah.
But we thought, I don't know, like, when I was watching the meeting, I thought it was kind of weird because, like, this is the only time they meet to make decisions, and the council, like, really never talked.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of presentations and a lot of people talking and just giving information to the council and to the people. So, like, for the blue cards, they're time limited to 3 minutes, and for the presentations, they're limited. But it's still really hard because everyone wants to have their voices heard, and there's these specific interest groups. So it definitely seems like it's trying to get information out there. So this one seemed less of a decision-making day and more of a let's hear whatever the people have to say.
It was definitely more of a public talking to the council than what I originally thought it would be, the council kind of discussing within themselves.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, a little weird because, like, I don't know, just, like, with the time limit and everything, I thought they would be better, but because of the time limit, like, the bike trail people just threw out stuff, like, they threw out statistics like crazy, and, like, it was, like, you couldn't really understand the statistics, like, they just, like, flashed, like, 20 of them.
Yeah, I thought that was... But then the mayor talked about they often don't really rely heavily on those because he goes back and kind of checks with his staff and validates those statistics.
Yeah, because it can definitely be easily misconstrued, so that way you can use statistics however you want. As an AP statistics student, I can definitely see how you can make statistics work in your favor. You can make them say what you want them to say. So it's interesting to see what he takes into account. It's not just statistics, it's how does it affect the people? What do the people have to say? Are they listening to the people? And making sure that as many people as possible approve and are happy.
Yeah. So then after the presentations, they move into a study session, which we did not stay for, but it's pretty much when people who weren't scheduled to speak can come up and talk about, I think, something already discussed, about one of the presentations that was already kind of gone over.
But it seems like you would hardly ever have that happen because there were, like, we left and there was, like, no one there still. Like, I mean, okay, so when we first walked into the meeting, there were, like, tons of people there, and we were so, like, confused because we were like, why are there, like, there were, like, parents and 10-year-olds there.
Yeah, some little kids.
But then we realized that they were there to be awarded for some writing contest that
The historical, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
that these, like, elementary school kids did. And then when they left, it was, like, kind of felt like us and then a bunch of, like, I don't know, like 50+ kind of crowd.
Yeah, there was definitely an older group of people.
Like
and
the
that,
demographic.
Yeah, and that could be representative of the population of Oro Valley because I know Oro Valley tends to be a majority of older people. But it also seemed interesting, besides the fact that everyone was older, about 50+, that there was also, it tended to be, especially talking with the mayor, what he said he tends to see is extremists, and not necessarily like political extremists, Republican, Democrat, or like religious extremists, anything like that, as in extremists who have an opinion on a certain issue, and they are either opposing or supporting something, and that's why they're there. They're an interest group about what's being discussed, a topic on the agenda.
So, like, yeah, like, the people showing up, like, there were, like, 5 people, I feel like, there, who didn't actually, like, give presentations, almost, it felt like.
Yeah, it was very few people who didn't give a presentation. It was very much, I have an invested interest.
So, like, that's a pretty good rundown of, like, town councils and, like, their purpose. So, do we feel like they're effective?
I think we kind of discussing with the mayor that he thinks that the way that meetings are run are effective right now mostly, but he said that there could be a lot of change, especially with looking at the open meeting law and seeing that a lot of times it is the public talking to the council and not necessarily the council talking to each other. Is that kind of what you guys thought?
Yeah, sometimes it can be hard to make decisions, but it's good for transparency reasons. So there are pros and cons to it, just like there are pros and cons to everything.
And, like, it can be good to have to take time to, like, pass things. Like, yes, it can be irritating, but, like, there's also a point to have to, like, sit on topics before you just, like,
and that way people can learn about them and
And he said the council does want to hear what the people of the town think and how they feel about certain issues. So it's a good way for people to get involved and kind of see what's going on with the government and the community that they're living in.
Yeah, it seemed really informative. If it wasn't necessarily effective, it seemed a great way to get the message across about different groups like Golder Ranch, and both to the council and to the people who attend the meetings about, like, services they provide.
I mean, but sometimes less effective. Like that Golden Ranch presentation, it was like a 10-minute long spiel of just, like, services they provide, and it was like this. It was just so long, and I was like confused why they were doing it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's a balance.
Yeah.
Hearing the people and also making sure things are effective.
Yeah. So, like, would you attend a council meeting?
I think that council meetings are beneficial especially if you have a motive or you're part of an interest group that is being discussed in the agenda that you previously look at. But I think if you are, like, the silent majority, you can go to them and they can be interesting or beneficial, but I think that a majority of the time it's designed for the people who are extremists in that kind of aspect.
But I think it's like, it can be worth showing up. Like you were saying, your dad's a fireman, and like when they do budget cuts, like a lot of firemen will show up to the meeting to like protest those, and like that makes a huge difference. And like a year or two ago, when there was all like the bike trail issues and like with homeowners associations and them trying to be like public access, like tons of people were showing up to those meetings, like, but it was people who were affected by the decision.
And like we noticed, it's rarely people who are just kind of somewhere in between or don't have a clue about anything that show up.
It's like they want it or they don't, kind of.
Yeah, it seems like, I think you should attend if you have an interest in one of the topics that they have on the agenda, and you have a desire either to oppose it or to approve it, and so you want your voice to be heard in support or against it. And I think also, along with that, if
you don't, then there's other ways for you to kind of become active in government. Like the mayor talked to us about Flash Vote, which is a super great way for you to get involved, especially if you have a busy schedule. It calls for like a minute a month just for you to sign up and vote for something that's happening in your community. So it's a super easy way for you to get out there, even if you already have a busy schedule.
Yeah, Mr. Winfield talked about how important it is to get involved in government, especially because local government has the biggest impact on you, and you can have the biggest impact on it because it's a lot smaller, it's a community. And so you don't have to necessarily go to the town council meetings. If you have an interest, great, go. Or if you just enjoy council meetings, go. But if not, you can join boards and commissions. Like we have a friend whose mom is on the transportation board because she's interested in making sure that the roads in Oro Valley are kept up. And you can also watch the meetings online afterwards, or like Sydney was mentioning, you can use Flash Vote at www.flashvote.com/Oro Valley, and that's a great way to have your voice and your opinion heard.
And like we would highly recommend that. It's for 18 up people, but like we understand the time commitment of doing this. Like it's asking a lot of people to like show up, but I think it's a really fair thing to say like, hey, can we have a minute a month to try to like understand the residents in the town better, and like you can help out your town, and it's so easy, and it's like a great form of communication.
And even if you aren't one of the extremists, if you're just part of the silent majority, the mayor loves to hear from those people, because that is generally the majority of the community, is that not on either side of the spectrum. So it's good to hear what just the general person has to say about certain issues.
Yeah. And so kind of going off of that, if you fit into one of these groups or not, going specifically to Christians, since we are from a Christian school, whether you should have a Christian obligation to participate in local government or attend these meetings. What do you guys think?
I can definitely see why people might say like, yes, you should attend, because like we're called to be stewards of the things we're given, and like we've been given a government that we're called to be involved in, and like the government form we have only works with like people getting involved.
Yeah.
So like to a degree, like it kind of feels like you should be involved in some way, or at least like care.
And as Galatians 6:10 says, as we have an opportunity, let us do good to everyone. So like Carissa said, we have the opportunity we're given with this Republican form of government, that we should try and do the most good to everyone by participating in this government.
Yeah, and along with that, by helping people, you can also help to elect Christian officials, or make sure that Christian ideals and morals are in place in your local government, so that things you actually believe in and actually want to support are being passed, and they're actually doing their job the way you want the job to be done.
And when you're a kid, you're like, I feel like you hear this verse all the time, the like, do not grumble verse, and it's like, if you're just complaining about something, like, go do something instead of just complaining all the time. Like, get out there and say something, because, like, they want to
Yeah.
hear you.
And like we talked about, at the local government, you have such a
That's
big,
super
like, voice.
true.
It's such a small community that you have so much, like, potential in what you can do.
Plus, like, the emphasis on community is, like, so big in the Christian lifestyle that, like, you should definitely at least care about your community and,
Yeah,
like,
want the best. Yeah, exactly. And you can do that so easily a minute a month with Flash Vote, just voting for officials that you believe will actually
Yeah, like,
help.
during election
Yeah.
season, like, actually vote at your local level.
Yeah, so town council meetings are a great thing, but they aren't the only thing.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think the big takeaway from this is get involved in government, especially local government, because you can really have a big impact.
Yeah.
And it really impacts you.
So, we hope that by listening to this podcast, you guys learned a little bit more about town council meetings, what they're all about, learned a little bit more about local government. We hope you guys will consider getting involved and at least think about getting out there and doing something.
We encourage you to join Flash Vote. Please sign up and get involved in your community.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you
so
guys.
much.
Bye.